This is a question made for you, Doom, and this is one from me. Would a remix of a classic theme have helped spice up Metroid Dread's soundtrack? And maybe, if we can even go a step further, what remix would you have wanted to see and where?
So the answer for me is, well, I would have liked to see a couple more classic tunes rearranged. The answer is no, because I ultimately think, and I feel like I've said this a lot on the podcast, but ultimately that's not my biggest issue with Metroid Dread's soundtrack. My biggest issue is in terms of mostly the instrument selection, because a lot of the instrument selection, it's a lot of the music theming in Metroid Dread, it leans more towards orchestral sounds, and for me personally, I'm not generally the biggest fan of when Metroid tries to do that. There's some exceptions, like Skytown Elysia. I think that's a great example of Metroid like nailing the orchestral. There's a few tracks in Corruption actually I think does it well,
Mm-hmm.
but generally it's, to me, it's very antithetical to what makes Metroid music unique, and I feel like Dread kind of doubles down into those areas that I don't like. And on top of that, a lot of those synth patches that do try to mimic orchestral instruments, they sound very cheap and almost toy-like, which makes, certain themes almost sound like they were ripped from completely different games. Like, you're fighting Experiment in Z57 or whatever, and it feels like I'm fighting a It feels like a theme that should be in Mario Galaxy, not a Metroid game.
Hmm.
Or Ravenbeak's theme, which is a theme I actually like out of context in the game. I actually like listening to that when I drive, but in the context of the game, it feels more like a Zelda boss than a Metroid boss, and it feels very like, it feels like these two worlds are fighting against each other. Whereas I feel like the music should be a part of the world, enhancing its character, and I really don't get that in Dread. Going back to the main question, though,
I
would
don't
I
know
have liked
why,
to
but
see?
listening to the Ravenbeak theme driving got me.
Power is everything as I'm flooring 90 at 2 in the morning.
Oh boy.
But no, would I have liked to see some more classic arrangements? Sure. And the big one, I've talked about this on the podcast before, is after you defeat the Power Bomb Emmy, which should have been its own boss battle, but after you defeat the Power Bomb Emmy, you leave. I can't even remember what the
Hanubia.
area is called. Hanubia. Thank you. Yeah, you leave Hanubia, and then all of a sudden, it's not raining anymore. There's a little bit of a sunrise coming up, and you get the Super Metroid theme of Samus Aran Galactic Warrior theme playing uh,
Hell
as you make
yeah.
your as you make your way to Ravenbeak. That would have kicked so much butt. I would have been all about that.
That would have been awesome. That would have been
And
awesome.
it's perfect because it's like the same type of context. Because in Super Metroid, you sank, very deep into the planet, and then you come back up to this area that you're familiar with in Dread. You're like back on the area where your ship is. You're finally fully powered. It's like it would have, that was the time to bring it back, and they didn't do it. That's the one change I would have made for classic arrangement.
That would have been awesome. That theme really hasn't come back a whole lot. Like, not
It
really,
hasn't,
not
not
at
a whole lot.
all.
It has not come back.
Yeah. I like on one hand, I kind of like that it's like the Super Metroid theme song, but oh, that would have whipped if it came back and came in with Inubia. Oh, so to answer my own question here, I think that I don't dislike the Metroid Dread soundtrack as much as many do, and I think particularly like while you're playing and listening to it, it sounds fine. It goes down easy. I would say that I just don't think it's like all that memorable. And like, granted, we've only had like I don't know, 18 months or whatever to listen to it, so like, of course, it's not going to have that same kind of panache. But like, I mean, the first time that you heard Brinstar or Phendrana or Skytown, you were just like, wow, this is a great track. And I don't think that Metro Dread has any of those. Um, but I think to make the soundtrack a bit more memorable, they probably could have and should have included some remixes. I was thinking like, because I think that like the problem is like the soundtracks kind of blend into each other a little bit. So like if you had a remix somewhere, that would at least kind of pop out and stick out. So like imagine that you're in Gavarin or something, and it's kind of like a Metroid Dready style like Green Brinstar remix, like do 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 whatever, like, right? Or let's say that Berenia had like the Meridia remix or something like that, or like something, maybe the Sector 2 theme was used in I don't know, in Gavarin or something like that. But it did kind of feel like a missed opportunity not to draw from like any of the other 2D games in terms of using like remixes. And I didn't want them to do it the way that Samus Returns did it, because I thought that Norfair mix that they used was like kind of obnoxious. And I certainly, the one remix that they did use was the Lower Brinstar remix, which I don't think that we need to hear again in like any games anytime soon, because it's been in, Super Echoes, Samus Returns, now Dread. I think that we can give that theme, and that's one of my favorite themes in Metroid, by the way, but I think we can give it a break for now. But yeah, I was thinking like, Green Brinstar would have been good, or like Meridia, or something like anything from Fusion. Maybe like a remix of like that. I don't know what the track is called, but like, when you're talking to Adam and like bad stuff is happening, it's like do 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 do
Oh
do.
yeah,
That would have been a cool theme for like for Elon. The X area.
I mean, yeah, for Elon too, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that would work. What an ex-parasite that guy is. So yeah, I think that it would have helped. Too late now, but oh well.